Hey guys, Problem1701 here, and today we are going to talk about classic Doctor Who. And my question is, what season of classic Doctor Who do you think is the most overrated? Now, let me be clear, I don't necessarily mean good or bad. I'm definitely not trying to say that the season is bad, or to imply that it's bad, but just just overrated. Which one do you think might be a bit or a lot overrated? Which one do you think is the most overrated? Doesn't quite deserve all the praise it gets. I do want to point that out because I have a feeling my choice could be controversial. Because I will say about my choice, it's a good season. It's a really good season. With one of my favorite doctors, one of the best doctors. I did a patron exclusive ranking of the doctors recently, and my patrons got to see that this doctor is very high on that list. So I do want to get that clear. It's still a good season, but I do think, I think it's that particular doctor's weakest season, whereas most people seem to think it's his strongest. And it's the one I hear so much about where I'm like, really? Really? Because every single good story in it I think is overrated. Good, great even, but overrated. And I am talking about Season 5, Patrick Troughton's second season as the Doctor. Because I hear a lot that Season 5 is Troughton's best season. Some of my regulars tell me all the time, Season 5 is Troughton's best season. I know Nikayako just prattles on at me about Season 5 being the best season. Whereas I find Season 5 my least favorite Troughton season. I prefer Season 4 and Season 6. I just think they have better stories. Because even the good stories in Season 5, I think, are overrated. They're still good, and in some cases great, just overrated. I feel that about the season. So let's look at the season. Tomb of the Cybermen. I'm so sick about hearing about Tomb of the Cybermen. Tomb of the Cybermen is great. It's not masterpiece amazing. It's great. It has some very iconic scenes in it, like with the Cybermen waking up and coming out of their tomb is really good. Watching the tomb defrost and then refrost later is really good. Troughton is great in it. Jamie is great in it. The Doctor's speech to Victoria, talking about her dad and about traveling through time, is wonderful. I love the fact at some of the little things, like when Troughton is turning the knob when nobody's looking to open the thing, is really nice. And I love the black guy at the end sacrificing himself to hold the door closed, which is pretty progressive. I know Tomb actually gets a lot of crap for some potentially problematic stuff with that character, which I don't really agree with, considering that the black character in it saves the day at the end. He's the one who sacrifices himself to save them. And I think that's a pretty progressive move for 1966. I actually would applaud they made that decision, that he, at the end of the day, is the one who stops the Cybermen. I think that's pretty progressive for the time. And I'll give the episode that. My issues with the episode are, one, I don't like the Cybermen design at all. I don't like, even as much as I love the moon base, I don't like that Cybermen design. I much prefer the 10th Planet design and the Invasion design that would come later. And in both cases, I think 10th Planet is a better story, and I also think the Invasion is a better story, which is one of the reasons I prefer Season 6. Invasion is just a much stronger story than 10th Planet. Even though Invasion's twice as long, I find it easier to get through than Tomb of the Cybermen. I think Invasion is better than Tomb of the Cybermen, and easier to get through even though it's twice as long. I don't like the cyber voices because I can't understand what they're saying half the time. I don't like the way the mouth opens and closes. The Cybermen themselves I don't really care for in this story, and they should be more of an interesting focus. And the funny thing is I don't even feel that. I'm not the only one that feels that way. People seem to forget, but back when Tomb of the Cybermen was first found in the early 90s and fans finally got to see it, a lot of fans were left disappointed because its reputation had built up so high and everybody had just mentally conjured up this image of it being this fantastic story based off the audio. Its reputation was up here. And then, the actual episodes are recovered and people get to actually watch it, and it turns out the quality's only here. So instead of being up here, it's actually here. And a lot of people came away with it disappointed. I've seen several mentions of this. The documentary making of for the Invasion on the Invasion DVD. I think mentions that. I know there's another bonus on there where it has a bunch of the people who recorded the audios back in the day, back in the 60s. And that's where we have the surviving audios from. It has a bunch of them on it. And they talk about how when Tomb was finally recovered, how it didn't quite live up to its reputation. There are several people on record for saying back in the 90s and early to mid 2000s that while Tomb is still great, it's not that masterpiece everybody had in their mind of it. And for some reason, a lot of people seem to forget that. I never see people mention that down in the comments. People seem to have forgotten that, and now its reputation seems to be back up here because people seem to forget that there was a time in the 90s and the 2000s when Tomb's reputation suffered from being recovered. Kind of the opposite of Enemy of the World. Its reputation went down a bit. Abominable Snowmen I haven't seen. It's kind of hard to judge since most of it's missing. But by reputation, I hear it's really, really good. Wheel in Space is kind of the opposite. Wheel in Space is this season. But I hear Wheel in Space isn't that interesting. I hear it drags a bit. It's a little boring. Not necessarily that it's bad. Just that it's the least interesting Cyberman story from the 60s. That's what I hear a lot. Of all the 60s Cyberman stories, it would rank at the bottom. I mean, it's cool that it's Zoe's first story. I really enjoyed the 10-minute animation of it that was on Macroterra, though that was more due to the animation just being awesome. And I don't really like the cyber design for the Wheel in Space Cybermen either, especially the face. It just looks weird to me. But the impression I get, even though I haven't seen it, is that it's a weak Cyberman story, at least by Classic Who standards. And then we have the Ice Warriors, which I think most people would agree the Ice Warriors is kind of mediocre. It's definitely, I think, subpar to Seeds of Death. I know there are a few people who prefer Ice Warriors to Seeds of Death, but I feel pretty safe in saying that I think most fans would agree Seeds of Death is the better story, which is another nod for Season 6. Because I don't mind the animation for the Ice Warriors. I think episodes 2 and 3 look good. I like the animation style, except for on the Ice Warriors themselves in it. The Ice Warriors look a little weird when they're talking. But other than that, I think the animation's fine. It's just the story itself just kind of plods along. I find it uninteresting. Now, to be fair, I only watched it once, and it was on a website on my phone, because trying to watch it on the TV made it look even worse. And so maybe on a rewatch, I'll appreciate it more. I've been tempted to pick it up just to own it, because I love Troughton. But that one watch, I just found it just mediocre. It's like Troughton's Destiny of the Daleks. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just mediocre. It's like his version of Destiny of the Daleks. Enemy of the World is good, but like Tomb of the Cybermen, it's overrated. I don't think it's the masterpiece people claim it is. I think it's really good. I know it's really gone up in its reputation since it's been recovered. Troughton is great in it. I love how he plays Salamander different than he plays the Doctor impersonating Salamander. There's a lot of nuance in his acting there. The guest acting cast do a really good job. I really enjoy them in this as well. It's well acted, and I even think it's well executed. It's just the story itself doesn't quite grip me as much as a lot of other Doctor Who stories. I still think it's great. I just don't think it's must-see Troughton, unless it's for Troughton's performance in the dual roles, which I think is great. And then the ending just kind of ends too soon, with Salamander getting sucked out and going, ah! And then that's it. I kind of wanted to see like an extra 60 seconds of that, personally. Overrated. Then we move to Web of Fear. Same problem. I have this problem with all of the masterpiece stories of Season 5, of where I think they're really, really good. I don't think they're masterpieces. Now, if there is any story in Season 5 I would call a masterpiece, it probably would be Web of Fear, but I still think Web of Fear is a little overrated. If I can call it a masterpiece and still say it's overrated, I know that doesn't really make sense. I like Web of Fear. It is my favorite Series 5 story. It's really good. I love meeting the Brigadier in it. I like Troughton in it. I like the horror, chilling atmosphere. The atmosphere of it's really good. I love the foam effects. I like how the Yeti look in it. I like everything going on with the great intelligence. I don't have a lot of issues with it, but for some reason I don't want to go back and rewatch it. I rewatched it when I bought the DVD release, and I can't remember if that was last year or early this year. And I enjoyed it. It was really good. And then when I got the special edition in, you figured I'd be chomping at the bit to watch it with the animated episode, but I still haven't felt the need to go back and watch it yet. I just haven't been like, as much as I kind of want to rewatch it, I don't really want to rewatch it. Eventually I will, but like usually if I get like a special edition of something, I want to rewatch it again. Like when the special edition of Power came out, I wanted to rewatch it because I love Power. But as much as I like Web of Fear, I just haven't really felt the urge to go back. To be honest, I have a stronger urge to go back and watch the Crotons. And Web of Fear is a better episode than the Crotons, but I really would much rather go and rewatch the Crotons. I like Web of Fear. I love the atmosphere. I love the tension. I love the filming in the sewers and the way lighting is used in it. It's really well put together. It doesn't quite grip me as much as other stories, like again the Invasion or the Mine Robber or the War Games or even the animated version of Macroterra, because I love the animation there. I can say I love the animated version of the Macroterra more than anything in season 5, just because one, I do like the story of the Macroterra, but two, I love that animation. It's so good. They marry really well together with Macroterra. And then we have Fury from the Deep. And most of you, if you watch my channel, you know it's the animation just kills it for me. The animation doesn't fit the tone of the story. To me, that hurts me more than the animation itself. Like, I know Galaxy 4 has a similar animation, and I'm not nearly as put off by it because I think that style of animation will match Galaxy 4 pretty well. I'll know more when it actually comes in. At the time I'm recording this, it hasn't come in yet. I think they'll match much better tonally, and I won't be as bothered by it. But the animation style, that cartoony, Scooby-Dooey, long arms, South Park looking cartoon style they use for Fury from the Deep, doesn't match Fury from the Deep at all. It doesn't fit Fury from the Deep tonally at all, because Fury from the Deep is supposed to be creepy, scary, atmospheric. The seaweed is coming to get you, Barbara. You know? Type thing in you lose it. All you have to do is watch the surviving footage of the Oak and Quill attack on the scientist's wife, and then go back and watch the animated version of it, and the animated version looks like a parody. It doesn't compare to the original surviving footage at all. Now, I firmly believe that if Fury from the Deep was intact and completely survived, it will be one of my favorite Troughton stories, because I love the story. I love the audio. I love the music and the sound effects and everything in there. The tension it sounds like it does, like the heartbeat and everything, and just down there in the dark. That's great. That's so atmospheric. I love it. I think Fury from the Deep would easily be one of my top 5 favorite Troughton stories if it survived, but the animation just kills it. And that's pretty much it. See, there's nothing in there that just blows me out of the water, with the closest being Web of Fear, but I just don't have that desire to go back and rewatch it anytime soon. Whereas, like season 6, which a lot of people regard as his weakest season, yeah, it has duds like Space Pirates and the Dominators, although Troughton's still good in the Dominators. But then you got the Mine Robber, and I love the Mine Robber better than anything in Series 5. I love the Mine Robber. That is Doctor Who being Doctor Who. Something different and out there, much like why I love Ghostlight. And even The Haunting of Villa Diodati I like because it's different. The Invasion is amazing. I love The Invasion. That is probably objectively Troughton's best Cyberman story. Although subjectively it's probably my second favorite because I love the Moonbase. The Crotons, very underrated. A good script by Bob Holmes. It's got a very basic plot, but as a first story I think he does really well. The actual story I find really good. I think the acting is good. The Crotons themselves, I think their head design is really, really good with the diamond head. I think that's very ingenious. The upper body is okay, and then the lower body's, yeah, you kind of lose me at the lower body. But the diamond head and the concept is fascinating of them being made from minerals and how they can go back into mineral form. And that's a fascinating concept. There's a lot of really good ideas in the Crotons. And some really great scenes, like that touching scene between the Doctor and Zoe. Go away. No, what's this do? No, come back. No, what's that do? And she's over there, press the button. That's a beautiful scene. Love that scene. Seeds of Death, again, I think it's better than the Ice Warriors. I think it's a really strong second Doctor story. And then the War Games. I love the War Games. Again, nothing in Series 5 to me is as good as the War Games. To me, Season 6 has those just masterpieces in it to me, like the Mind Robber and the War Games easily, and I think you could throw Seeds of Death in there. And then the Crotons isn't a masterpiece, I'll be the first to admit that, but it is a good story. And then I also like a lot of the stuff in Season 4, despite it having to be mostly completed with animation, better than most of Season 5. Like, I love Power of the Daleks. It's probably my favorite Troughton story. I love Power of the Daleks, despite only being able to see it in that limited animation. I love the Moon Base. It's my favorite Cyberman story. I think it's better than Tomb of the Cybermen. I just enjoy it more. And Troughton is just on fire in it. Macroterra, because of the animation used and the liberties they took, I love Macroterra better than anything in Season 5. The only thing that comes close, I might argue, is Web of Fear. Because Web of Fear is really good. It's great, honestly. Evil of the Daleks, I don't know. Evil of the Daleks, while I don't think is as good as Power, I think is really strong, really, really good. It runs perhaps an episode longer than it needs to, but really good. I think I like it probably better than anything in Season 5, except maybe Web of Fear. God, I really wish they'd find Fury from the Deep, because I do think I would love Fury from the Deep if it survived. But yeah, I mean, just honestly, I find Season 5 the most overrated. Even those stories that people prattle on about, Tomb, Enemy of the World, and Web of Fear, I think get a little too much praise. Only a little, I think, in Webb's case, but especially Tomb, I think gets too much praise. And Enemy of the World, I think, gets too much praise. Even though they're both good, very good, I don't think they're masterpiece, best Doctor Who ever. So that's my thoughts on it. I would like to know what you think, so let me know what you think of what I've talked about, and what season of Doctor Who do you think is the most overrated in classic Doctor Who? I would love to hear what you guys think, so comment down below. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I do a new video every day. I also have a Patreon if you like what I do, and if I haven't completely made you angry at me by attacking a Troughton season. There is a link to that Patreon down in the description below, so check that out. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.